lurkers if you've ever seen my live stream, and if you have, I appreciate you for showing up. So I'll just start with me. Who am I, right? So I teach code. I make videos about code, how to get into the industry. I went to a different code boot camp that a lot of people at Lambda School are from. And there, so Ben was my teacher, right? So the CTO of Lambda was my teacher. He taught me how to code. He was rigorous. He was he'd always give really like easy starter questions, and I would just like question my life choices a lot whenever he would do that. But like I'm pretty sure I was like the bottom performer of that class, but I asked a lot of questions. I would keep Ben past it. He's like, just let me go home, Josh. I'm just like, Ben, please hold on. I have to get a job doing this. And, that's where I'm at now. So I finally got a job. I think me and a couple other people were the only people that got jobs from that cohort, because it was part-time. It wasn't set up to get you a job. And we learned Angular, like Angular 1, like way back Angular stuff. And then eventually I was applying to almost everything. I actually had one job offer for a PHP job, but I couldn't take it because it was full-time. And I couldn't quit my mechanical engineer job that I had at the time. Oh, by the way, if you don't know, that's actually my degree. I realized that wasn't for me. I'll talk about that in a second, like my educational background, but I got a job. My first job was Ruby on Rails, but I had a different job offer for PHP I couldn't take. What else do I talk about? Basically, I just talk about the industry. If you put enough effort in, it doesn't matter if you have a degree. It doesn't matter like where you're from, who you are, like you can learn to do this. Like I think a key factor of this is like cultivating work ethic a lot. So if you guys have any questions, just drop the questions over in the chat and I'll engage as we go. So my educational background, I have a mechanical engineering degree from Finland. We didn't do a whole lot of code there. We did ladder logic, basic, like it's like an if-else statement. We did some stepping stuff, a little like not enough to be real, like what would qualify as like any programming language per se. But that's my background. It was actually like machine automation. So just basically robotics. We had to write a thesis. I wrote this thesis that like transported like dog food across a factory, and I had to submit it somewhere and they had to like approve it. And like, obviously everyone at the company that I submit that to hated it because like all the forklift drivers were going to lose their job. But the company was like, hey, thanks for this. We might use this, but we're not going to pay you for it. And so that was my thesis. It was like automation, which is super cool, but the job that I got was not automation. It was classic, a lot of PowerPoints, a lot of Excel sheets, a lot of Word documents, a lot of meetings that should have been emails. So anyways, I was like, yeah, I want to learn how to code. So went to boot camp, learned how to code, and here I am. Okay, so my work experience, my first job, mechanical engineer. My actual first coding job was a Ruby on Rails position, and we learned Angular. So it doesn't matter what language, what stack, like your ability to learn how to learn and learn how to learn something quickly is like your selling point. Yeah, you should have skills that are like relevant to the job market, but the more valuable skill is being able to pick up something quick and figuring out how to solve problems. Everyone's like, you need to know how to solve problems. Like, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but that's like your value to a company. And that's why you can interview pretty much anywhere. Once you learn the core concepts and you guys get that, you get all the programming and web development stuff. I don't know if you're all in web dev, but you get computer science and you have like the core concepts and you can take that to any job. So after that, after my Ruby on Rails job, I got a vanilla PHP job. And then I got a React and PHP job. We did a little bit of SQL there. And then my most recent job, which I'm no longer at because now I do this is kind of my job, was C#, JavaScript, and SQL. So the first one, I was kind of like this weird part-time intern thing. They didn't really have a name for me. I didn't really have a name for me. I just like showed up and they give me the tasks that they were too busy to do, but they were paying me to do it. And I was like, well, I'm more than happy to do that. Let's do it. The vanilla PHP job, it didn't really go that far. They hired me on to work on a project they were ramping up to. Then that project fell through. And since I was the last guy they hired, I was the first guy that was like, hey, sorry, we messed up. Okay. So I had to get a new job. And then the job after that was all remote. Watching as I eat lunch. Awesome to see you here. What's up, John? Thanks, dude. Lucas, feel free to drop your questions. Pedro, thanks for the sub, by the way. Patrick wants to know, I'll get back to my sentence in a second. Patrick wants to know, how do I still deal with imposter syndrome after all these jobs? Yeah, I still deal with imposter syndrome, especially if I'm doing live coding. Like whatever I'm doing something new and then I'm like live coding that, it's just like, I don't feel qualified. People are looking to me for advice and I'm like looking at the chat for advice. So it's this weird, like, can you tell me the answer? And then chat's like, just do this thing. And they're like, why don't you know how to do this thing? Patrick. But yeah, I still deal with it. I think eventually, I don't know if it ever subsides because I haven't been here long enough to get to that point to where it's subsided for me, but it's really loud at first. Like the perfect example was when I got the job, I was like, I'm a superstar. Like, then I can, I'm getting paid to code. I'm legit now. And then he like drops the book. He's like, all right, read this and then do these 3 things and have those to me by like Tuesday. And I'm like, what? And then I did not feel qualified at all. I was like, how did I get in this position? Why are they paying me to, like, just questioning everything? Every streamer knows that chat has 1200 IQ. So that's what we did, right? I was like, all right, I can't figure this out. Chat, drop the answers. Chat drops the answers and I go and paste it in and it's broken. I'm like, you guys don't even know how to do this. Don't pretend like it's an easy solution. Everyone's like, just do this one thing. Anyways, that's streaming. Lucas, could I tell you how it is to land your first job without prior experience? What are the expectations towards such a person? Do they explain? So how it worked with me, when I applied to that job, they brought me in for 2 different interviews. The first one was like this to like feel me out, to see if I'm cool, see if I'm qualified. And they asked me some like theoretical questions about Ruby and Angular because that was like what was on my resume. And I answered those and they're like, okay, that sounds good. Here's a take-home test. Please have that back in like 4 or 5 days. And so I struggle bus my way through that thing and I come back and like we're both surprised that it's correct. Because I feel like they were giving that to me as like get this guy out of here. But then we came back and it was correct. And I was surprised and they were surprised. And then I got the job offer, accepted that right away because I was ready to like work for free almost, just to work in a professional environment. But that's how I got the job. And actually he told me no because I was applying for a full-time position and he told me no, I couldn't have the full-time position, but thank you because you don't have enough experience. And I was like, wait, hold on. What about part-time? Let me do something. You're a startup. If you let me do part-time, it will make your company look amazing, like you're hiring new fresh tech talent out of the boot camp scene. And they were like, wait a minute, he has a point. And so they did that kind of like as a PR move, but that was like a last second, like grasping at straws to see if they would be okay. And when they said yeah, and I was like, what if I work remote a couple days a week too? Like, I was just like, retrospect, I was pushing that too far by asking that because on the days I was like, all right, I'm going to work at home Fridays and Saturdays. And then on those days I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I need to go ask somebody. So like, I probably shouldn't have said that, but they were okay with it. He didn't really do anything day one. He didn't sit me down and be like, all right, have these things and this thing and this thing. He had my MacBook set on my desk with a couple of Ruby books and a couple of monitors and then a little docking station. And then he gave me a login to Asana and I logged in and he had some stuff assigned to me. And he's like, all right, just finish these when you can. Let me know if you have any questions. And it was a startup, so there's only like 5 people there. I didn't really know exactly what I was doing. So the first thing I did was like go up to the CTO and I was like, how do I do this one thing? He's like, just read the book. And I was like, okay. So I spent like my first week just reading Ruby on Rails book and getting paid to do that. And that was kind of weird to get paid to learn, but that's kind of what this job is anyways. Most of the time I get a project, or when I would get a project to work, it'd be like, I don't know how to do that, but please give me a moment and I will try to figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, and like I'd give them a timeline of X so they don't think I'm just messing around, just not doing anything. I'd be like, all right, give me like 3 days or a week to try and like sort this out. And if I don't, I'll come let you know what our possibilities are, or if I need to give this to like someone else, the CTO or something. But it's never been really explained. It's always like, here's this thing we're going to do. Please read until we get ready to do that. At my React job, on day 1, they gave me a login to Bitbucket and I logged into Bitbucket, and I had a whole bunch of tickets assigned to me. And he's like, just explore, see what we're doing. Feel free to attach yourself to a ticket, and then, just try and complete that. And I remember like, there's like this super easy styling bug fix that I found like by using the inspector. And I was like, yeah, sorry, this took me so long. It took me like 3 hours to because I was documenting every little detail that I was doing that day because it was remote. And I was like, didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm getting paid to be remote. This is weird. And he was like, don't worry, it's cool. That's fine. This happens in code. And I was like, okay, cool. Cause like when you're at Code Bootcamp and it takes you forever, you're like, I can't do this on the job. And they give you tests that are like, please have this done in like 4 hours. But in reality, if you're on the job and you had that same exact task, if you took a day or two on it, it wouldn't be a big deal. They're just putting you under crunch time because the software industry is based around deadlines and pushing releases to production. And that's what they test you on. So does that answer your question, Lucas? That's kind of a rant. Brian Ruff, did I say those exact words? Which words? Which ones specifically? If there's any other questions, feel free to drop the cues in the chat. So I talked about my first job, imposter syndrome. So I assume that you guys are familiar with imposter syndrome, but basically that's when you don't feel qualified to do a certain thing. And when you're more than qualified and everyone else is like, dude, you got this. And you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you start, questioning your life choices. I want 2 days remote. Let's see. Yeah, it would make your company look better to hire bootcamp grads. I mean, I think it's a decent argument. Like, as long as the bootcamp is not crappy, then I think that if you have that, like, look, like there's a lot of startups, people that create startups don't even necessarily have degrees. Like the dude at my startup had a degree, but his degree was in math. And so he was the CTO and he did all the front end stuff with Bootstrap and Ruby on Rails. And I know that you don't learn that in a math degree. Like you don't get that with a 4-year math degree. So what else did I put? I just made like this little PowerPoint thing because Bree told me I had to have like a 30-minute PowerPoint. And I was like, last time I did a presentation, I was in college like 5 years ago. And even then I was like struggle busting to present in front of a classroom of like 10 people. And now there's like 52, even better. That's about me, but like life on the job on the day-to-day depends. Like usually you have a daily stand-up. I know you guys have like a nightly stand-up. We had that every day. Josh, you can do whatever your heart tells you to do. Listen to your heart. All right, guys, I got it. What's my opinion about applying to jobs that require 1, 2, 3 years experience? We have no commercial experience. It seems like 99% of the jobs have those. I think there's a disconnect in the people that write those and the people that are hiring for those. Mine is like apply anyways. I wouldn't apply to the point where you get blacklisted. Don't be me, right? HR people are like, they stopped sending me, we'll keep your resume on file, and started sending me, please stop applying. Like, I was like, I'm sorry. So don't take it that far. Just apply to the point where like you apply to like 1 or 2 positions. If there's like a front end and like a full stack position, maybe apply to both. And if they say, hey, what are you looking to do here? I always put at the bottom of my cover letter, if my qualifications do not fit these expectations or responsibilities exactly, I'm open to other positions that may better fit my qualifications. Like I always put that in my cover letter at the bottom just to let them know, like, look, I know that I'm applying to this and it's not 100% match, but I'm willing to do whatever. And like my little summary for my resume is like, I'm passionate about technology, not a specific framework or language. Even this, if sometimes that's not entirely true. Like if I was applying to a Rails job, for example, I'd probably take that out and put like, I don't want a Rails job or something. Because I don't like Rails. I have like PTSD from that job because it was just like so shocking to like learn all this learn this entirely new language. They're like, well, you could figure it out. You figured out Angular. And I was like, I guess I can figure it out. But it was like, I was on my own. They had one other developer there. And I remember I asked him questions so much the CTO was like, Josh, he can't do his work because he's trying to help you do your work. And so that was the point where I was like, okay, now I know the limit where I'm asking too many questions. Because like I wasn't that kid in college that would just like keep the professor like held up all day. I would be like, hey, what about this? Like I was never that guy. I would always do it after the class because I don't want to be that guy. But I would ask a lot of questions, and apparently at a startup, when you only have a couple resources, you can't do that. And so I learned that was kind of like, all right, so now I have to really like step up my game here and figure out how to do this. Rails magic, exactly. Um, what else did I do? So for the remote job, you guys are all remote right now, going to Lambda. So for the remote job, that was kind of like my dream because I like that autonomy. I like having my own space. I got my little office here, got my monitors and my speakers, and I like to just get in the zone. Can't really do that when you're at an office. And so I've always been like remote. And I've had a lot of questions that are like, can you get a job remote, like right out of boot camp? And it's possible, but it's difficult because you're competing with people that, number one, they just want a job. And then you're competing with a whole bunch of people that already have jobs that just want to work remote. So you have like the double whammy there that you have to compete against. It's still doable. It's still possible. There's a whole bunch of websites you can look at, but like if you're going to apply to those places, you got to like think outside the box, like have a value proposition, kind of like I did with like, it'll make your company look good, or like I can bring you this extra skill that's not necessarily 100% code, but this is what your company is doing. I did that for a video company. They were hiring a software developer, and I was like, I have video editing experience, so I can also do that on the side to help out your main guy if you wanted. Like I'd always tried to find another way to add value besides just like matching the position in its entirety. I always tried to find ways to apply to jobs that weren't typical. Like don't harass people on like Sean, nice dude. I wouldn't like harass people on LinkedIn. People are like, well, go find them on LinkedIn and send them a message. Like I would find not the hiring manager, but maybe one of the people that work there, like one of the devs. Typically devs don't check their LinkedIn unless they're looking for a job. I mean, have you guys seen the meme where like dev without a job is like perfectly shaved, like clean shaven, like wearing a suit and tie, and then dev with a job is like coffee cup, robe, like long hair, like, you know what I mean? Like it's just the classic meme for the developer. So they don't usually check their LinkedIn when they have a job. So it's a hit or miss if you go that route. But what I've done before is send a video. Like they're like, please drop a cover letter, and I dropped an unlisted YouTube video just explaining them. I was like, look, I know you weren't expecting this, and I know this is kind of awkward, but hear me out. And like a couple of those got responses, and they were like really interested. And then we did the code test, or for whatever reason, it just didn't go through because I would apply to jobs that, as you know, I apply to jobs that I'm not necessarily qualified for because I don't care if I can just get my foot in the door and I can communicate with you. Maybe there's something we can work out. If there's no possibility, that's fine. But it's worked for me. It worked for me. And this was a C# job that I just had most recently. Was not qualified to do that. I made a game in Unity, which is a C# based game engine. I made it for Androids, and it's on the little store. You guys can go download it. I made like 7 cents off of it because I was like, all right, game dev, here we go. Game dev is life. Is not 7 cents does not pay a mortgage. But it got me my C# like ASP.NET job. So in my experience, I always try to find more ways to up my value, like in auxiliary terms. And it helps if you can communicate. It helps if you can, like, when you go in for the interview, you're not really, I don't know, people focus on what you focus on. So if you're really nervous in the interview, you're like, sorry, I can't talk. I'm really nervous. They're going to focus on you being nervous. So like when you can look at them in the eye and you can communicate, shake their hand, and you're like, what I've always done whenever I've gone into an interview, I was like, can I see the software? Can you please show me the software? What would I be doing with this software? As long as there's not like an NDA or something that they can't show you. For example, in the last job that I had, they wanted to overhaul the UI, and I was going to be the guy implementing all that code on the front end and then connecting it with C# on the back end. And I was like, can I see what we're doing? Can I see what the application is here now? She showed me some of her mock-ups. I went to, we like went to the application, and she's like, do you think you could do this? And I pulled open the inspector, and I was looking at one of her mock-ups, and then I like kind of, I created it on the spot with her, like right there. I was like, yeah, let me just make this upper portion for you. And I just did it right there on the spot in the inspector. Like obviously she's going to refresh the page and it's going to go away. But I was showing real interest in like, let me see this. Let me see if I can do something right now. And I guess a lot of other people didn't do that. So I just act overly maybe it seems overly engaged compared to the normal, but I'm always like, hey, can I see it? What can I do? Like, what would I be doing? Who would I be partnered with? What team would I go on? Can I meet that guy? I think that'd be cool. It's a little awkward. I mean, especially if you're not really interested, you just have to like fake it till you make it, sort of. Just to be honest, it's always been kind of nerve-wracking. Yeah, I feel like I've been ranting for a little bit. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. Okay. You try to apply for your first job. You have this idea that you're fake, like you don't belong. People will laugh, look weird. This guy has only projects and thinks he can apply for the job. How do you deal with that? Okay. I don't know if you guys like watch Gary Vee, but basically you shouldn't care what other people think of you, because that other person that's thinking these things of you is yourself. Like, you just typed out what someone else was thinking, but that's what you're thinking. Like, probably no one's thinking that. Probably they'll look at it and be like, he probably, this doesn't really match. Next. That's it. Like, that's as far as that would go. Like, you're the one that's in your head about making that into this big, huge thing. Like, you're just insulting yourself with that sentence. And it's just you. You're your hardest critic. You're always the hardest on yourself, and no one else is going to think that, really. If anything, when I see someone that's really trying, like, maybe this is, like, when people go to the gym that haven't gone to the gym in a while, people are really self-conscious. Like, I don't want to be that guy at the gym, like huffing and puffing. Like, whenever I see someone at the gym, I'm like, yo, good for that guy. Like, people like to see other people that pull themselves up, not people that focus on what they don't have. Let's see. Which one? Which one are you talking about, Lucas? So I think you're just hardest on yourself, you know? What trends do I see in software dev today? I think a lot of the titles are changing. There's a lot more expected of each title now. We have like a front-end developer used to just mean some jQuery, HTML, and CSS. Now it means you need to know the React lifecycle. I know I'm the best one to answer that question, but you need to know like Sass, Less, React's. You need to know like Redux. You need to know SQL. Like, a front-end developer now is like a full-stack developer, but they call it front-end because that's what you'll be doing. But you still need to know everything that a full-stack developer knows. Same thing with UI UX. I've seen that too. Now UI UX people are having to learn front-end like basics. They'll need to do Less. They'll need to do basic React components, and then you go in there as the developer and start connecting the props and the store with the Redux, and like, but they'll just make the bare bones component with you, and they'll do like, I've even seen responsibilities like where they have to style the component. That's the first video you saw where I answered the React lifecycle. Yeah, I didn't know. Oh man, I bombed that one. That was a good one. Peter, does that answer your question, sort of? I just feel like a lot of the titles aren't necessarily like, there's a lot of skills, like, I don't know if it's inflation, but you just need to know more than you did a couple years ago. The job title is necessarily like what you're going to be doing, but you're going to need all those auxiliary skills. How does real world projects differ from stuff you learn at boot camp? It doesn't. It doesn't really. Like, on Friday when you get that end of the week project, and you're like, you either have a moment where you're like, I don't know how to do this, or you're like, I could probably figure out how to do that. It's literally the exact same feeling that I get at work, except now I'm not like on a 3-hour deadline. The company's on a budget, and they're like, yeah, we only have so much money and so much time to do this. Have you ever worked in non-tech industries, like in an insurance company? The only jobs that I've had, I worked, like, I'll just give you a brief rundown of like my entire history here. I worked at Kroger as like a bag boy. I worked at Subway. Got some good stories there. I feel like if you've ever worked at retail or in the service industry, you can really tell someone's true colors by how they treat someone in the service industry. So that was my experience there. And then I worked with my dad a little bit at his company. I worked as a mechanical engineer. I mean, they're all kind of tech, 'cause that's kind of what I've been interested in. So like as a dev in a non-tech industry, let me see. So like as a dev at a non-tech company, let me think. I don't know. The last company that I was working with was like a nonprofit. We sold software, but it was a nonprofit organization, and so budgets were a real thing there. Especially if there's cuts or anything like that. We're working with like government agencies a lot, or people that are dependent upon donations, and so budgets and deadlines were a real thing. A lot more than when you have a flexible when you're already profitable and you have a flexible budget, you can kind of like take your time on things. But I find in larger jobs, larger corporate jobs, there's less flexibility and you're just more by the book. But when everything is riding on a few people, it like doesn't matter what those few people are doing as long as they're getting it done. That's like what I prefer. I like that flexibility, that autonomy. Does that answer your question? Sort of. What made me decide to be a full-time YouTuber? All right. I don't know if YouTuber is exactly what I would identify with. I think that's just what maybe people see, but I do a lot more than that. I I teach code. I have like a side job where I work with like a cryptocurrency. It's called, well, if I shill a cryptocurrency, that's like obviously going to be bad. So you can just look it up. It's called Archain. It's Pyrofix. They make that. I work with them. But mainly because it's fulfilling, because I think there are a lot of great devs out there that are just like technically like this is me and this is them. And now you can see that the imposter syndrome is like coming like you can see it in real life like right now. And so what I find more fulfilling is like helping people understand, like working through their like, maybe that sounds bad, like working through like their mental issues, like their mental blocks of like motivation and like I'm not qualified. Like I'm not trying to call Patrick out, but I'm gonna call Patrick out for a second. When he had his moment, right? Working with Patrick, and he's like, "Bro," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I've been here 10 times. Let's do this." And then he's like, "No," and then he goes offline anyways. And then like an hour later, he's like, "You're right." I'm like, "See, this is like what it's about. Like moving past it, because no one was there. No one was really there for me when I was having this. But I figured out if I just kept doing it, showing up is like 90% of the battle. And then what you learn is like you use like 20% of what you learn 80% of the time, and the rest of it you're going to be like, oh, I don't really know that, but I remember hearing about it. Let me go Google it. That's how it's been for me. But it depends on the job. Do I think my engineering degree helped me with software engineering journey? Okay, so because my engineering degree is from Finland, most of the time they ask me if I need a visa. And I'm like, wait, hold on, no. So now I had to start including that in my cover letter. Like, I don't need a visa. I'm a U.S. citizen. I think it's actually not helped me because that's not from the U.S. and they think that I need sponsorship, and so they don't respond because of that. Or they always ask me if I need a visa. I'm like, no, no, no. So I just include that in my cover letter now. If it's a larger company, especially if it's a smaller company, I'll always be like, I'm a U.S. citizen, willing to relocate, blah, blah, blah. They've never really asked me like about the technical side of things with the engineering degree. They've only asked me like, why did you get that if you're doing this? That's been like the major question. Did the engineering degree help with problem solving? The engineering degree helped me discover that if you fail a math class 3 times, you can still pass it on the 4th time. And so that was kind of like a mental thing. Engineering was really hard. Did it help with problem solving? It taught me to slow down, break down my problems into smaller pieces, and then attack those. Kind of like, I didn't know about pseudocode then, because that doesn't really exist in mechanical engineering, but you kind of have to do that. If you guys have ever taken like not statistics, but like statics and dynamics, strength of materials, you have to do like these free body diagrams. You have to do those in physics, but you have to do free body diagrams and like break everything apart, draw it out. It's kind of like pseudocode. When you get a task, you got to block it out into like, all right, do the loop. All right, it needs to do this thing, each iteration of the loop. Does that answer your question? Did I swerve? I'm not trying to swerve questions. You struggled a ton. What advice do you have for someone that would like to get started in doing the kind of thing that I do? you just have to put yourself out there, even if like not, I don't necessarily feel qualified all the time to talk about certain frameworks or libraries. And I'll just say that. I'll be like, look, why don't, I get a lot of questions whenever I do a live stream. They're like, tell me about Java. I'm like, I didn't go to college for computer science, and that's typically when they teach you Java, and I just can't talk about that. But what I would do is like, say if you have value, which you clearly do, I would just figure out a way to build a brand, right? So this is kind of like what Gary Vee would say. If you guys, I don't know if you guys watch him, but as a developer, you have your portfolio, you have a cover letter, and you have a resume. That is you, like in a nutshell. What else do you have on that, right? So build something, like blog about your experience, blog about your knowledge, like find a way to get an upper edge on that value. As much as it like sucks to say, like it's a competitive space. It's not like we all get jobs at the end. Like it sounds good, but you know, no one competes to be second. Like everyone, your competition is like, it's just part of it. And so you need to figure out a way to raise your value. I know that sounds, well, what if I don't have anything that I'm good at? That's not true. Everyone has something that they're good at, and they could leverage that for this. You just have to figure out a way to make yourself stand out in the cover letter pack, so to speak. How likely is it that companies could work with you financially with relocation, especially with junior? Okay, so my very first job hit me with that relocation package. They brought me from Finland to Salt Lake City. So it's not, I mean, that's why I actually couldn't take the first job offer that I got because they relocated me, and if I quit, I had to pay all that back. So I had to wait. What was my relocation package? I felt like a rock star. It was like a rock star relocation package. Like they got me a little apartment. They got me like this little Mitsubishi car. Could barely do 80, like barely, like flooring it on like going downhill. I don't know. But the fact that they were doing all that for me was like, what? I'm just a guy with a degree, and you're doing all this for me. And like the rent was paid for 2 months. And they were going to give me like 3% down to put on a home payment, but I was just out of college. I had negative money, so that didn't work. What else did they give me? That's about it. Oh, I got a paycheck. That was cool. That was cool to get a paycheck that wasn't like nothing when you're in college. So it was cool to kind of have that whole experience. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Oh, they paid for my plane ticket, one-way plane ticket from Finland to Salt Lake City. I remember my phone ran out of, like it didn't have service here, and I had printed like MapQuest directions, and I like had to drive up to people. I was like, can you tell me how to get here? And they're like, just go over there. And I end up in like the bad part of town. Then I have to go up to those people. I'm like, can you tell me how to get there? Please don't steal my stuff. Like it was cool. It was a good experience. But I had to give the car back after like 60 days, and then I had the apartment for 90 days. Why did I go to Finland for school? Just abroad or family? Yeah, so I met a girl, and we know how that goes. I was going to school here for mechanical engineering at Georgia Southern Polytech, and then I went there and had to restart. Did I learn to speak Finnish? Yeah, so like if you guys have seen Lord of the Rings, like it sounds like Elvish. That's what it's based off of. The jobs list that they do the relocation, or do you have to ask for it? I was just applying the jobs at the time, but when they like took me to like the 8th interview or whatever, because I'm just like this 24-year-old kid that they're interviewing, I had to do like loads of interviews to see if I was worth their money. And eventually I was like, so how do I get there? And I was just like the cheesiest smile that I could conjure up. I was like, and they were like, luckily for you, relocation package. And I was like, what do you mean luckily? But okay, sure, let's do it. And so if you go to Stack Overflow right now and you go to the left side, you click on jobs, you can sort by relocation package. Like you can check a little box, and you can find loads of software jobs that have relocation packages. You can also find remote jobs or jobs outside the country if you're interested. But Stack Overflow is a great place to sort. It's one of the only places I've seen that actually like has an option to sort by. It will assume you need a relocation package. It depends. If you're out of state, depending on what state you are, how far you are, they might just give you money to move, like rather than just doing a whole relocation package. Because if you do a relocation package and you get there and you figure out you hate the job, a lot of times you can be tied to that, like I was. If you quit within X amount of time, you owe them a prorated amount of that money back. So if you quit on day one and they give you 30 grand to move, now you owe 30 grand to somebody. So if you're in a state next to it and they just give you some money to move, it's probably in your best interest to take that and not sign that contract. Do you think that you can apply for a remote job as a first job? Yeah, you can definitely apply. No one's going to stop you from applying. You're just going to be competing against two tiers of people that want remote and just people that want to work, people that have experience and you don't. So what's going to make you stand out in that little gap? And so you're going to need a way to send the hiring manager flowers or something. Just figure out something to get like that upper edge against someone that's like, look, I really want to work. I really want to learn. I promise I won't make you lose money. Let's see, what areas of the US are hottest in tech? Is dev still an in-demand skill? Yeah, dev is way in demand. There's just a lot of people that call themselves junior software developers that can't even do FizzBuzz. Like there's a I don't know if you guys have talked to Austin ever directly, but he was talking about a study that was done that was 97% of computer science graduates can't solve FizzBuzz, and they can't even explain how it's working, like what the gotcha is. Like if you don't check both conditions, look, I'll just explain it, right? If you don't check both conditions first, it will break. It won't work. And so a lot of people can't even write a loop and then not even, be able to explain that concept. But what areas of the US? Okay. We got Salt Lake City. A lot of people are moving to Salt Lake City. A lot of the Silicon Valley stuff are moving here. Silicon Valley's going to be there for a while. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I know Seattle's pretty good. I mean, Seattle's got Microsoft. You got Steam up there. You got New York City. That's a pretty popular place. Atlanta's a really good place. Raleigh-Durham is a good place. North Carolina. In the middle of the country. That's a rough one. What is STL? Oh, St. Louis. Not sure about St. Louis. Houston. Oh, so there's Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is growing. Yeah, Denver's a great place. Right now, there's a lot of startups in Denver, specifically a lot of cryptocurrency startups in Denver. So if you're interested in blockchain technology, Denver is a pretty good place. Also, there's some crypto here too in Salt Lake City. I don't know anything about like North Dakota, probably nothing there. Maybe some oil. I don't know. Yeah. Is it true that it's harder to get a job in places like Austin or San Fran, where lots of devs are moving to make the market more saturated? It's definitely not harder because a lot of people are realizing, why are we paying so much money of our capital in rent when we could just have these people be remote? Unless you're like Google or something that's willing just to pay that extra cost. But even then, I've heard of some people that work at Google that share an apartment just so they can save on rent. I don't think it's harder necessarily. I mean, there's definitely, do you just want to work for most of your paycheck to be rent? I guess that's the real question. It's like 50, it's really expensive to live there. But as far as what is happening right now? Is that me? Okay. Yeah, normal house in San Francisco is like 6K a month. Austin's pretty good. I know Austin has I think Google's there in Austin for sure. North Dakota tech scene, current governor. Oh, okay. I know Wyoming has a lot of blockchain going on there. Yeah, Austin's getting pretty expensive, but it's got some good companies. That's for sure. And maybe Houston will be pretty good. I'm not trying to shill, right? But I made a video on a bunch of different places, and I was just talking about the different cost of living and how much it costs, how much a house costs compared to the salary, compared to how saturated the market is. Yeah. I don't know why someone was calling me. It was odd. My bad. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any more questions. Just feel free to drop them in there. I'm not quite sure what to talk about. I think I've kind of exhausted my experience. If you guys know who I am already. We've got 15 more minutes. Yeah, so just drop some questions. It can be about whatever. Hopefully I can like give you guys like, so if you guys can't like walk away with this like without something, like I don't think I've done a good job. So speed through the PowerPoint. I mean, I kind of made a PowerPoint, but I just haven't done a presentation in a while. How do you feel about teaching others to code? Does it help me learn? Yeah, I mean, when you can figure out how to explain difficult concepts to people that are already having a hard time understanding what are simple concepts to you, then you definitely, then I don't know. It's a humbling experience. It's frustrating when the way you learn and the way you teach doesn't mesh with someone else's way of learning and way of teaching. But if you can work through that and you can get to the moment where they're like, oh, I got it. And you're like, oh my God, that took like 3 weeks. This should have taken 2 days. It all just pays off at that moment. It's just like, all right, so now how could I explain this better the next time? So it definitely helps you internalize the concepts. Where I teach people to code, just on YouTube, on my Discord, just whoever asks, really. I can't say, right? I'm not allowed to say. Have you ever hired a tutor for help learning CS related stuff? No, I've never hired a tutor. I've always just asked a bunch of questions, and then if someone didn't answer, I just go to the next person. Breaking down everything to a 3rd grade level. Yeah, I mean, if you guys have read the Reddit that's like explain like I'm 5, that's kind of what you got to do with computer science skills. Sometimes it seems really silly, but when you break it down to such simple concepts, it's like writing a loop. For some people can get stuck if you have a loop inside of another loop, and to me I get lost in loops. That's my weakness. So having to like explain it to people is just like, all right, let's go through it together. Let's get this deck of cards out and like, you know, like visually go through this. Because I'm a visual learner. Oh, not everyone's a visual learner. How are some of my technical interview experiences? Oh man. All right, let's talk about the good ones first. We did the one where I took the test. They were both surprised that I completed it. That was a good one. There was another one where they gave me a take-home project. I had to write a React app from scratch that connected to an API, and then I had to get the secret key, and then I had to get the data again after I gave it back the secret key. That was a good one. That's how I got that React job. And then for this most recent job, they gave me some mock-ups that I had to create. And then like I had to create it like to the T, had to be responsive, like all of that. And then if you wanted to add animations or something to it, you could do that. What else? For the PHP job, they had me create a Twitter API app. So I had to create just a basic page where you could post tweets using the Twitter OAuth API, pretty much. And then that was that one. And then I had a bunch of interviews where I didn't get the job. One of them, most notoriously, that I will never forget, will be the ones where they watch you, the ones where they make you share your screen and walk them through everything that you're doing. Those, yeah. One of them was for, I'll just name drop because I didn't get the job. I'm not going to work there. So it's O'Reilly Auto Parts. They called me up. They made me share my screen with them, and the lady was on the phone. She made me put her on speakerphone, and I was like, "Can I use Stack Overflow for this? Like, I think I remember the method to do this one thing, but I need to use Stack Overflow to get the exact syntax." And she's like, "I'm sorry, that's not allowed." And so what I did was I got my laptop and I opened my laptop up because I'm screen sharing with her, and I was like, "All right, well, I'm going to do this on the job anyways. This is crap." So obviously she can hear me typing on my laptop, and then it was the Insta like, "Okay, Josh, I don't think this is working. We're going to have to end the call." And I was like, "Okay, because it's stupid. Like I'm gonna be able to Google stuff on the job." There's been a couple like that where they've been over my shoulder forcing me. One guy gave me some language that was written in Cobalt, and he's like, "Can you explain to me what this does?" And I was like, "Maybe. I mean, I can read the comments. That kind of looks like something." And then he made me do like 10 different SQL joins, like really complicated SQL joins to get some data. And I was like struggling on number 3. And he's like, well, are you sure that you can do this? I was like, why would you ask me that in the interview? I've had some really like moments where I'm just like, I'm never going to get a job. Let's see. You have a feeling that you need to read on advanced stuff before you apply to the job. Advanced stuff. What I would do before you apply to the job, look up the company's values. Like seriously, go to Google, type in company name, space, values. Look up their values, talk about that in your cover letter. If you're like, yo, I vibe with what you're doing, I really appreciate, like, maybe don't put I vibe with what you're doing as like your first sentence, but I really think that I match the skills that your company has, and believe in your mission or something like that. That's what I always do. Just look up Justin. Yeah, I don't necessarily know. I would look up the tech that they're using, look up the people that are working there on LinkedIn, look up their values, and talk about all those things in their in the cover letter. Like, I know you got to do a little bit of creep in here. If you go on LinkedIn and you see the people that work there, a lot of these developers have blogs, right? Because that's probably how they got the job. They had that upper level, that little piece of extra added value there. And you can go read their blog and you can talk about, look, I read developer X's blog and I really think what he's doing here is good, blah, blah, blah. Like, figure out ways to dive deeper and grab more information. Maybe not so much on the tech side. They're going to get to that when you get to the interview and they give you your code test, because you're going to get one. What are the 3 parts of the project for React lifecycle? Patrick, I'm not going to answer that question if you have your camera off. It's Lambda policy that you have your camera on. Thanks. Okay, right, so we have the mount, unmount, and then the other one I forget. Will mount, updating, component will unmount, updating. I think there was one that they took out recently. I haven't used React in a while. Okay. Any insight into blockchain tech, whether JavaScript is a viable language? Yeah, so I've actually seen the Pyrofix where I'm at, they have some developers working with Node, and they're using Electron to build a IDE for blockchain. And then I know they also code in Java. So they're not building anything in C, not C directly. What do I think you can do to set us apart during the interview process? Be able to communicate, look them in the eye. And I know as software developers, eye contact is hard because it's hard for me. Because what I usually do is look at them in one eye, and the whole time I'm just looking at them, I'm trying to understand what they're saying, but it's really hard for me to disregard the notion of this guy's gonna realize I'm just staring at one of his eyes. There's the whole point is just communication, really. Be able to communicate and don't be nervous about it. If you don't know something, just say, I don't know. If you don't know everything, you probably shouldn't be at that interview. Then you've gone too far with the just apply. Don't interpret it that literally. What else can you do to set yourself apart? Yeah, just be engaged. Ask to see what you're going to work on. Ask to see who you're going to work with. Ask to go meet the CEO if he's there. A lot of times you'll just be meeting the VP or the hiring manager or whatever. Go meet the people that you're going to work with. Be engaged. Want to look at the app. I mean, you just have to be real, I guess. What else? Opinion on if open source contributions to personal projects pull more weight. If you're applying to GitLab is an open source, what is it? Management, version control. It's kind of like GitHub, but it's open source. And so on there, because I applied there and I got an interview there, they were really big on we want to see your Stack Overflow answers, and we want to see that you're contributing to open source. And I was like, I contributed to open source one time, and it was a spelling error or something. And I was just like, all right, here you go. Because I feel like there's a lot more people that spend a lot more time that just do this than me. And they always find the bugs before I do. It's not like I'm more focused on doing my job and getting, staying employed or getting a job than hunting down open source projects. I don't think it's make or break, because it depends on what level you're at in your career and if that's something you're passionate about. As for the job, it depends on the job and if they're utilizing a lot of open source. Do you have any tips how to start with open source? Any project that would be easy for beginner and at the same time meaningful? Like for open source, how to start with open source? I don't see, like, I don't think I can answer that question because I have basically zero experience with doing that. I've only applied to GitLab, and then I tried to convince them that my one answering a jQuery question was enough to get me the job, and they said no. So I didn't work there. You mentioned running a blog. Can you use Medium? I don't know. Depends on how businessy you want to get with that. Like if you want to use Medium, or you can go ahead and do that. If you want to make your own blog, you can still do that. Medium has like a advertising. I don't know. See, I'm already thinking about like business and money and stuff. But for like a brand, Medium is fine. I just try to drive traffic to it. That's the thing, right? If you can have the best article in the world, but if you can't get eyes on it, it doesn't matter. And like you could fall into that trap of like, well, if it's good, people will come. Not if they don't know it exists. And like occasionally Medium will recommend it, but you need to be. I would post like on LinkedIn. Like this is what I would do. If I had to start right now, I'd add everyone on LinkedIn that I could possibly do, just so that when you post on your LinkedIn feed a new blog that you do and it links to your Medium, all those people that you don't even talk to will see it and they might like, oh, what's this? And click like, and then it goes on their feed that they liked it, and then someone else might click like, right? So that's how I would drive traffic now to a professional blog. You could use Instagram, but like I don't think I've ever seen a post that's like, check out my new blog post, guys. Like it's always just like cat pictures, cat videos, like Hacker Noon can, if you can get on there. In depth was the Google interview with data structures. Wasn't that? I don't know. I didn't do the technical part really. I mean, there was some technical bit in the first one, but it was just like, do you feel comfortable with these? Can you explain to me like some basic algorithms? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like what? And then she asked me a couple questions. I don't know, Lucas, does that kind of help? Last question, how much data structures and algorithms do you use on your daily job? Data structures, not so much, because they would leave that to some other guy that was more senior than me. Algorithms, yeah, I mean, it depends on your company. If your company has time to refactor code, you're going to be going in there and you're going to be probably trying to make the best algorithm that you can make. But if your company's like, just get it done, those are two separate types of companies. You have the get it done company, then you have spaghetti code, technical debt. Then you have the like, let's take our time and do this right company. And at those companies, you're going to be doing algorithms. At the other companies, it's like, we got investors, they want their money, just get it done. So how much? It's hard to say. It depends on the company. I know that doesn't help you. 1010 would tell your mom. That's good. That's cool. Any other questions? We've been here for an hour. I didn't think I'd be able to make it. Yeah, it'd be like a waterfall versus agile company, pretty much. I didn't sleep like at all last night because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about for an hour. I mean, I kind of do because I talk about it a lot, but I've never had to like present like since college. So thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. How often do I create content on YouTube? I stream once a day, and then I make a video. I try to make a video every single day just to stay in the rhythm, and especially because I have a house now, and this is kind of what I do. So I have to do it. But it's fun. It's not like I don't enjoy it, right? It's fulfilling. People are like, oh, thanks for this. Yeah.
I think I'm going to wrap that up as our last question so everybody can take a break before our next brown bag. But thank you so much for coming and chatting with everyone today. Everyone's been so stoked to have you come and talk with them. And they were already asking if, with the 3 topics you provided, if you could just come back and go over all those topics. So hopefully we can have you back again. But Kevin asked, can you link your social stuff and whatnot?
You guys can just ping me on Slack. I'm just on there if you want it. Because I'm not in every cohort, so you can just ping me directly on Slack. You earned a sub, bro. Appreciate it.
Also get all his stuff too, and I'll put it on the brown bag channel, or he can drop it on the brown bag channel. But anyways, thanks everyone for coming today, and everybody have a good afternoon and finish your lunch. So see ya everybody.
Later, guys. Thanks for hanging.